Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Patriots History of the United States. I'm the co-author of Patriots History of the United States, Larry Swikart, with Michael Allen. In case you missed it or were wondering, yes, I have the updated chapter, what would essentially be chapter 23 of an updated edition, along with all the changes, all the new insertions. And I got to tell you, I just keep finding more and more stuff that I think is relevant that needs to go in. And since this is kind of a freebie, I mean, it is going to be free to you. I want to put as much in as we can now, because I probably won't be doing this again. I think this is probably the last edition we'll ever do of this book. So my original plan was to have it out last summer, and just kept getting book after book that I thought needed to go in, new analysis. So it will definitely be out by March or so. We're trying not to step on the toes of my new book called A Patriot's History of Globalism, Its Rise and Decline. And I can't tell you exactly when that's going to be out. They keep telling me, well, we can tell you when we get the manuscript. And I'm working on the very last chapter now. I'm about 1/4 of the way through the last chapter. So my guess is I can send it in probably within the next 30 days. My guess is that it will be out around March or April, something like that, but I can't be sure. I don't know publishers' timetables. If you don't know, these days there is a big shortage of paper. Publishers are always having paper concerns. So this started roughly with the China virus when they had all those container ships backed up, but it's apparently still with us. So that's all I can tell you for now. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Also, as you can see, we're turning Patriots history into a feature film. We've got a script being written as we speak for a 3-scene pilot called Rockin' the Wall. We're going back to the documentary I did in 2010. We said Why Fiddle with something was really good and had all these great dramatic moments in it that we can show even better in a feature film. And so we're going to start with that as our 30-minute pilot. And I need your help. If you can help out, buy me a coffee. Go to the website and watch the trailer. The trailer's a concept trailer, 4 minutes, but the pilot we're making will be about 20 minutes and 3 scenes. I need your help. Buy me a coffee. And of course, while you're there, shop around. And I know you've got your curricula already for this year, but there's tons of other books and resources on the site, many of them free. Look around and get all the free things. And I will tell you this, big announcement here. I am working with John Degree of Classical Historian on an 8th grade course. What we're going to do is fuse together his 8th grade curriculum that he currently has, and I am going to condense and write and do 20 to 25 video lessons to accompany that. And that will be available for 8th graders next homeschool season. And then finally, I'm starting to look for ways to make a 1-semester U.S. government course and a 1-semester economics course. And so I can use your help. If you are currently using a book that you like or one that you don't like and think it needs some work, please send me those titles so I can get them and start looking at them. Believe me, I'll do a better job than the one you have. So help me out if you can. My email is on site. It's larry@wildworldofhistory.com. All right, let's get started. We are in the 15th anniversary edition, as always. If you have an earlier edition, the 10th will line up pretty well. Page numbers won't line up, but the headers will. If you're before the 10th, some of the headers won't line up. You'll have to hunt and peck. I'm in chapter 5, Small Republic, Big Shoulders, and I am on page 177, The Duel That Scarred the Republic. John Adams, no friend of Burr's, once wrote of him, ambition of military fame and ambition of conquest over female virtue were the duplicate ruling powers of his life. Speaking of Aaron Burr here, and he was the last line of the last sentence. A direct descendant of theologian Jonathan Edwards, Burr's early military and political career seemed promising. As a Patriot colonel, he heroically, though unsuccessfully, stormed the British garrison at Quebec. Afterwards, he practiced law, espoused anti-federalism, and was elected a Republican senator from New York State. A relentless schemer, Burr entertained notions of getting New England to secede. When that went nowhere, he went on to more elaborate and fantastic designs. As has been noted, he attempted to stab his running mate Jefferson in the back in 1800, ending his career in Washington, although he was still vice president, almost as soon as it began. He ran for the governorship of New York in 1804 while still serving as vice president, thwarted in his attempt by his old rival Alexander Hamilton. Burr and Hamilton exchanged heated letters. Neither would back down, and a duel ensued at Weehawken, New Jersey, where dueling was still legal. Dueling was common in Burr's day. Some of America's most respected early leaders were duelists. Indeed, in some parts of the South and the West, dueling had become an essential component of a political resume. Andrew Jackson, Henry Clay, John Randolph, Jefferson Davis, Sam Houston, Thomas Hart Benton, and a score of other national leaders fought duels during the first half of the 19th century. Hamilton had slandered Burr on numerous occasions, once calling him the Catiline of America in reference to the treacherous schemer who nearly brought down the Roman Republic. Let me just mention this. One reason dueling was so important and was so common, if you go back to some of my very early lectures on the Revolutionary era, you'll remember that this development occurred whereby character was incredibly important in how one judged other men. That's why you never broke your word. That's why a slander could not be allowed to stand, because it hurt your character. Now, it's kind of hard for us today to imagine that somebody insults us. And for most people, it's sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I understand now that people are getting nutty about, oh, you offended me. To heck with that. Anyway, today we live in a society where records and written documents have taken the place of character. Excuse me. How do you get a bank loan? You go in and you fill out a form. The bank checks out all of your credit history. Did Susie pay all of her bills? Has Jimmy been late on mortgage payments? Have they ever declared bankruptcy? Did they ever default on a loan? And the same goes, I mentioned last time, I was talking a little bit about search committees and history departments, and the same goes with the records we would get about candidates wanting jobs. Billy is the best student I ever had, absolutely unmatched. Well, that's one reference. That's a pretty good reference. Jessica's one of the best students, and you see that that person had 10 students. That's a different kind of reference. So we have substituted today written records for character references. As we're going to see when we get to the 1830s, the company that eventually became Dun and Bradstreet, which at the time was called the Mercantile Company, relied on credit references from correspondence in various cities around the country. And one of those was Abraham Lincoln. And somebody from New York would write Abraham Lincoln and say, Joe Smith has asked us for a credit reference in Springfield, Illinois. What do you know about Mr. Smith? And Lincoln would send back a short note saying, I've done business with him. He's always straightforward. He's always paid his bills, so on. So dueling was one way in which you could get your reputation back. Kind of a weird way, because obviously the best duelist, the best gunman, wasn't necessarily right. Sort of like the old witch, if the witch sinks, she's innocent, and if she floats, she's guilty, and you're in a no-win situation. But it was generally accepted that if you win the duel, for all practical purposes, your honor was restored, right? So you could go on with your life. All right. At Weehawken Heights in New Jersey in July 1804, the two, Hamilton and Burr, scaled a narrow ledge more than 150 feet above water. They prepared to duel in formal, time-honored tradition, pacing off steps, then turning to face one another. 2 shots were fired, although historians know little else. Letters published later revealed that Hamilton had said he intended to throw away a shot, meaning he was going to fire his pistol into the air, satisfying the requirements of the duel. No one knows exactly what Hamilton had on his mind, though. It appeared to one of the seconds exactly what Hamilton had on his mind, though it appeared to one of the seconds that Hamilton fired first and that his shot went high and wide, just as he had planned. Well, if you're shooting at somebody, you know the old rule. Many of you young people, if you're around weapons or guns, you know the rule. Treat every single weapon as though it's loaded. Never point a weapon at anybody unless you intend to shoot them. And if you intend to shoot them, you better make it count. So if Hamilton did this, if he fired at Burr, but fired high and wide on purpose, Hamilton was not as smart as I thought he was. Whether Burr, as some suspect, was jolted into firing quickly, or whether he maliciously took his time, Hamilton was carried mortally wounded from the field on that day and died the next. So Burr shot him. After winning his duel and losing what little reputation he had left, Burr continued his machinations without pause. He wandered west in 1806 along with 100 armed followers. Burr sailed in gunboats down the Ohio and Mississippi to Natchez, Mississippi, where he was arrested and marched to Richmond, Virginia, to stand trial for treason. Versions of Burr's plans vary wildly, and he evidently told all of his confidants whatever they wanted to hear, so long as they would lend him more money. In court, Burr claimed he was only moving to Louisiana to start a farm with 100 of my armed friends and perhaps begin political life anew. Others suspect he'd formed a Western U.S. secession movement. Jefferson learned of it from Burr's co-conspirator. I'm sorry, this is in the book. That's a wrong word. I'm sorry, people. We shouldn't have that in there. The correct word is conspirator. There's no such word as a co-conspirator. If you're a conspirator, you're in on the conspiracy. So, mea culpa, we missed that one. U.S. Army General James Wilkerson was his conspirator. The president charged Burr with planning not only secession, but a unilateral war against Spain with the aim of bringing Spanish Texas under his own leadership. The administration tried mightily to convict Burr of treason, but the former vice president had outsmarted everyone. The Federal Circuit Court, presided over by the Chief Justice John Marshall, was quick to spotlight the weakness of the administration's case, setting huge legal precedents in the process. When President Jefferson claimed executive privilege in refusing to supply the court with original documents as evidence, Marshall insisted on a compromise. As for treason, the court ruled that since the government could not prove that Burr had levied war against the United States, he was not guilty. Freed, Burr returned to New York City, where he practiced law, courted rich widows, and schemed and dreamed to no avail for 3 decades. He never again crossed the Hudson to visit New Jersey, where there was a murder warrant out for him. Having extinguished his own career and that of America's brightest lights, one of America's brightest lights, Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr departed into infamy. All right. Now, this next section, I'm going to read the section. And then next time, I will have brand new material, I think, that goes here, if I remember the material correctly. So you'll get, in essence, a sneak peek next time at the new material that's going to be going in this chapter. All right. America's first preemptive war. Throughout the 1790s, Republicans had levied a number of highly critical attacks at Federalist foreign policy makers. Now, at last, the party of Jefferson was free to mold its own foreign policy. Jefferson dealt with some of North Africa's Barbary Pirates, seagoing Muslim outlaws from Morocco, Tunis, Algiers, and Tripoli, who regularly plundered 1790s American Mediterranean shipping. Washington and Adams had paid some small bribes at first. The trade was not sufficient to warrant a military expedition, and it could be rationalized as the way of doing business in that part of the world. But when the Pasha of Tripoli chopped down the flagpole at the U.S. consulate there, it was a direct affront and an act of war. In 1801, Jefferson slowed down his mothballing of the naval fleet and sent ships to blockade the port. All right. Okay, in fact, we do have new material ready to go here. It is here that I want to insert this. So, okay. This is brand new material that will appear in the new edition, the PDF online edition next year. So the first material I need you to insert is a few pages earlier. I missed this, so we'll just put it in now. And it's when Thomas Jefferson first takes over the government. So we will put this on page 170, right after the top paragraph, where the last line says, his administration upon them. And we'll start a new paragraph here. So here's some stuff that will go into the new edition, and we'll go on page 170. I know we're on page 179. We'll get there next. A much larger federal government greeted new President Thomas Jefferson when he took office. He flung himself into work, quote, hunting out and abolishing multitudes of useless offices, striking off jobs, etc., unquote. Jefferson told James Monroe that the magnitude of waste was beyond his expectations. Remember, this is 1801. Jefferson told Monroe that the magnitude of waste was beyond his expectations. Quote, agencies upon agencies in every part of the earth, and for the most useless of mischievous purposes. Hang on, I want to, there. And for the most useless of mischievous purposes, and all of these opening doors for fraud and embezzlement far beyond the ostensible profits of the agency. So it's amazing that Jefferson in 1801 was saying government's too big, too many offices, too many bureaucrats. We need to get rid of a bunch of these people. Oh, Tom. To a modern American acclimated to a federal government exponentially and vastly larger than what Jefferson encountered, this must seem almost incomprehensible. Henry Knox, in charge of the War Department, ran the entire defense establishment of the United States with a half dozen clerks. Imagine the Pentagon being run by 7 people. The tenor of the times would shock modern Americans, as Jefferson often rode his horse alone through the streets of Washington unaccompanied by guards. He rode to church every Sunday, attended scientific lectures, horse races, and the theater. And Jefferson, quote, was an inveterate shopper. His reinvention was ironic, as this aristocrat now appeared to the American public as a simple and modest commoner. Thus, he prohibited local militias from firing salutes on his birthday. On one occasion, Jefferson received the first British ambassador to a permanent residence in Washington, Anthony Merry, who arrived in full regalia, including gold braids, only to be greeted by the president clad in slippers and, quote, both pantaloons, coat, and underclothes indicative of utter slavishness, he said. All right. So we're going to go on now to page 179, where we are now talking about the Barbary Pirates. So I want to keep reading here, and we're going to insert this. Let's see. Operating under a set of joint resolutions, not a declaration of war, Jefferson, in terms eerily similar to George W. Bush's 2001 warning, either you are with us or you are with the terrorists, nevertheless informed all the Barbary states that the United States was at war with them, not just Tripoli. Slowly, the demands of the Tripolitan pirates had grown. By 1801, the settlement, I'm reading the new material now. By 1801, the settlement with the Dey of Algiers for 85 hostages included, listen to this, a newly built light frigate, the Crescent. I mean, we had to give them a ship, right? Just kind of unbelievable here. Hold on, I see a typo I want to fix there. The Crescent, and an annual tribute, quote, in the form of naval stores, weaponry, and ammunition specified as powder, lead, bullets, bombshells, masts, poles, yards, anchor chains, cables, sailcloth, tar pitch, boards, beams, lathes, and other necessities whose cost was estimated at over $100,000 and $1,800. Now, I don't know exactly what that would be. That would be hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars today. But we currently are trying to give the Iranians all sorts of money, and they chant death to America every time they get together. So who knows? Anyway, to finish this, on 179, John Adams knew that war with the pirates would not be quick. Quote, we ought not fight them at all unless we are determined to fight them forever. Okay, so that's all the new material. Now I'm back to the book, what's actually here in the book, in paragraph 2. Let's just start at the full part, the opening of paragraph 2. Operating only under a set of joint resolutions, not a declaration of war. Jefferson, in terms eerily similar to George W. Bush's 2001 warning, quote, either you are with us or you are with the terrorists, nevertheless informed all the Barbary states the United States was at war with them, not just Tripoli. He thus launched what historian Joseph Whelan called America's first war on terror. First, the president sought to get an international coalition to help. This is very much like what Bush did, but no European states wanted to alter the status quo. They were happy paying bribes. So in 1804, Lieutenant Stephen Decatur went ashore with 8 U.S. Marines to set fire to a captured frigate, the Philadelphia. Actually, he didn't go ashore. It had run aground. I guess technically that was ashore. But at night, Decatur and his men, they captured another Muslim boat. And they pretended to be Muslim traders, and they sailed up to the Philadelphia and then suddenly jumped over and boarded it. There were a bunch of Tripolitan pirates on board. Decatur and his men killed them or threw them overboard, managed to throw the cannons overboard so they'd sink and couldn't be raised, then burn the Philadelphia. So they didn't actually go ashore. While a separate expedition crossed the desert led by William Eaton, accompanied by, quote, a rogues gallery of Turkish, Greek, French, English, Spanish, Indian, and Eastern European mercenaries to assault Tripoli from the landward side. The American Desert Army also threatened the pirates' lucrative slave trade, and the presence of a powerful British fleet not far away put even more teeth into this threat. The Tripolitans never knew if the British were going to join in or not. This stick, combined with the carrot of a small ransom for the Philadelphia's crew, sufficed to force the pirates down, and after releasing the crew, they recognized American freedom to sail the high seas as uninterrupted. By dispatching even such a small body of men so far to secure American national interests, Jefferson put the world on notice that the United States intended to be a force, if only a minor one, in world affairs. It was a remarkably brazen display of preemptive war by a president usually held up as a model of limited government, and it achieved its results. The United States squashed the threat of the Barbary Pirates alone. Yet these foreign policy successes only served as a prelude to a recurrence of America's major diplomatic headache, continuing Anglo-French warfare during the rise of the Napoleonic Empire. As before, American foreign policy became bogged down in this European morass. Like his Federalist predecessors, Jefferson floundered in the high seas of European diplomacy. Okay, we will stop there for today and pick up on Friday. And I would remind you, help us turn Patriots history into a movie. Go on the site, watch the trailer, and buy me a coffee. Take a look around at the free stuff. I know the curriculum time has already come and gone, that you're all set with your curricula for next year. But if you email me at larry@wildworldofhistory.com and you have an interest in next year, already thinking about next year's world history, if you're in U.S. history, give me an email. Let's make a deal. I'll see if I can give you a special break on a price with a rebate for next year's world history course in the next month. So until then, I will see you guys on Friday.